Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of MPower You Podcast. Just me, Michael, your host today, and I'm helping light up the path to living life just a little bit more consciously. We do that by sharing stories of other people that are on the journey, what they've discovered, what they've learned, and what they're here to share with us today to help us live our life a little bit more consciously. So with that, I'm super excited to welcome my guest with Inbar Shahar, and she is super passionate about meditation. But like what you're saying is what I aspire to be is my life becoming a meditation, right? So I'm so excited to dive into this conversation and learn a little bit more about your story. And welcome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you. And by the way, there is a book about it that I've written few books, but one of them that I'm going to talk about today is the meditation tasting. And that's where we go through meditations through our life, but I will talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And I'll make sure we include your information and the link to that book in the description box wherever that follows this podcast to make sure that people know that's at. But take off. Tell me how this started. Was there some sort of an event that happened? Where I find that people talk about their passions and the things that I love talking about, especially on this podcast, there's always some sort of seed. I know I definitely had one in my life, and it's usually not the pretty part. It's like something, for me, it was like you learn and grow from the things that cause us trauma that we heal from. And then that's how my awakening started for me. What is your story? What is your journey been about in this regard?
So it all started after I moved to United States, and I was going through my second divorce. I was still very young, and I just had no friends, and I felt lost. I was completely lost. I was depressed. I was suicidal. I was just like, I couldn't believe that my life, I was less than 30 years old, and I was already going through my second divorce, and I was like, oh my God, it's like, I have failed, officially in my mind, I have failed. And I just felt very hopeless and had no clue where to go, what to do, what to start. I kind of lost all hope and had no friends really in the United States because I was still very new and my English wasn't, very good. And I just felt so embarrassed to speak it in public, or around people, even like in a group. And so I only had one friend in the United States, and she recommended that I go with her to a meditation center to meditate. And I had a lot of anxieties about just the thought of it, going somewhere where you're not supposed to talk and you're supposed to sit still. And I just felt so uncomfortable just thinking about it, and I kept pushing it away. And eventually, she was going to go to Europe for the summer for over a month, and she was so concerned about me and my well-being that she said, would you just come with me one time and try it out, the meditation? I think I like it, So out of desperation, and I was sweating in my palms and just anxiety going to that place, I agreed to go with her one night. And to my surprise, it seems like I was afraid that people are going to jump on me and ask for my name and like to make me feel like, like I will need to speak English a lot and nobody. And we just went to the hall and we were sitting there and the meeting started and I just listened to the chant. It was a chant playing and the chant was Om Namah Shivaya, which I learned later that it's about, God dwells within you as you.
Yeah.
And during that chant, I felt at some point that I need to go and sit on the ground. I just wanted to be grounded or close to the floor. And so I just slipped from my chair and just went and sat on the ground and started repeating that chant. Like everybody else, it was the same chant again and again and again repeating. So I just repeated it. I don't know what I was doing, if I was meditating or what it was. But
were you saying it in your head or were you saying it out loud?
First in my head because I was embarrassed to speak out,
But other people were like, it was audible, right? You could hear
Right, it was audible. Okay. People were chanting. It was a chant going on. It was a live chant. And I just sat on the floor and then I just started repeating it myself.
Okay.
And as I repeated it, it just took me on a trip inside myself. And finally I understood, like finally my mind, my brain relaxed. And I understood that it was all about inner satisfaction. Life is about inner satisfaction. It's not about all the outside paths and everything else and what all the judgment I had about myself at the time with the divorces and this and that. It was just like, how do you really feel inside? And that was really the first time in my life that I was looking inside.
The very first time, really?
Very first time.
Did it never like occur to you or like?
No, I'm coming from Israel originally, and
I was going
growing
to
up
ask you
there,
that.
it was all about the situation, the what's going on. You always listen to the news every 4 hours. You have to know what's happening. You have to actually really be concerned about other people. I mean, at least at that time when I'm sure it changed now, but many years ago, that's how it was for me, my
Are you
experience.
are you referring to like so I'm I hear things that happen there, but I have not like your experiences. I would love to know like is it from being bombed or like what is the like every
Yeah,
4 hours? What is that?
exactly. Yeah, from maybe being bombed or, it depends on the situation, what was going on in the country. I mean, before I was 1 year old, I was already in a shelter. And my dad was actually missing in a war. So it was like all these things that you just brought up with, and it's just part of you. This
You were always in fear,
constant
right?
cost
Constant
of,
fear.
yeah, like a trauma, like a terror that is kind of instilled in you. And you just grow up with it like it's normal. It's part of your everyday life.
Yeah.
And it's also about the community. Like you always have to worry about the community, making sure everybody is good and everything is okay. And it's less about the internal journey. Like I said, I'm sure, from what
There's
I'm
no
hearing in Israel.
no room for it at all, right? Like you can't
Right,
be in
right.
fear and meditate like they don't. It's like oil and vinegar. It doesn't mix. But I
Well,
feel
now, yes, there are ways to do it, but at the time it wasn't a thought that came to my mind. I mean, it was never about me. Actually, a conversation that I had with that friend that was really, I mean, now it's mind boggling, but at the time I remember she said, why don't you lit a candle in your room, and meditate at home? And I said, lit a candle for myself? Isn't that like I'm wasting the candle? I mean, just so you understand from what mindset I was coming from. Yeah. So that's where I was completely ignorant to anything that has to do with inner being. I felt as a victim, in my divorces. I felt like things just happened to me. I have no clue why. I just didn't understand anything. And it was
so.
this,
Was your I'm so curious. So did your faith interlude in this like I'm assuming you're Jewish, right? If you grew up in Israel, right?
yeah. Hmm.
So like your faith never provided that what meditation does, right? Or did
I'm coming from a community living. I grew up in a kibbutz. I don't know if you know what it is. It's like a small community living and with religious at all. So actually, the way I grew up was that we didn't follow the religious practices or anything like that. We just didn't follow anything. So we just kind of, follow what's happening on the news maybe or whatever, what's happening
no
around
connection
us.
to it whatsoever, yet you live there.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I would say little, like when I was 12 years old, I remember one night I was like really thinking to myself that life doesn't make sense at all because it cannot
Yeah.
be that what I see with my eyes and what I hear with my ears, this is it. I knew that has to be more to
More.
life. But
I did like because I grew up here. I grew up in a smaller community and like so few people, 500 people, but there's also probably 400 churches, right? And everybody has their own little thing. So like, as you're saying that, I'm thinking like, I'm relating to you and that fear of the bomb and everything, like you had it physically, but in like my experience of it growing up was, if you don't do X, you're going to go to hell. So there was a lot of, it
mm,
was like using fear to keep you inside that archetype,
mhm,
right? And here you
right.
are in the, like in of perception of Israel, what was that it's all religious. That's the only reason that you would ever be there.
Mm,
So like
mm,
I love when humans talk about our experiences because like we all walk around with these myths about each other, and we're all human. And what your life is expressing is this space of where no matter where you come from, because my if I did meditate, I wouldn't be on the planet.
Mm,
I would not be on the planet. I couldn't
mm,
exist here if I didn't know what you found when you went inside, right? Like
mhm,
I know that. I know how it's working. I also know
mhm.
that 90% of the population does not know that, right?
Yeah.
But like here you are, you had to come here and have a friend take you to a thing to chant a chant that came from another section of the world too. That didn't originate here. So it's like how peace and energy just brings all of this tapestry together to really leading us all back to the same place. And that's our eternal home. I just want that because I think
Mhm,
that's extraordinary. And like, I'm craving that space to have the global conversation so that we can all
mhm.
learn that we're all the same. We might have different backgrounds, but we have these mutual experiences. So let's I just wanted it's really important for me to get that out because I felt like that was sort of guided. But my experience, like your face, I'm seeing the light come out of you. Not obviously behind you too, but there's light actually coming out from your face when you talk. Like there's
Mm.
peace. You exude.
Oh, thank you.
So how long have you been in the practice of this? I mean, you've written a book, so obviously it's something that's been here for a minute. But like wherever
Books.
you're at, your vibe is like translating. Share more about that part of your journey.
This was in 2000 when it happened, when I went there to the meditation center. So that's been
Okay.
23 years now.
Okay.
It's been a while, yeah, for sure. And so that day changed my life. My friend went to her vacation in Europe, and when she came back, she asked me, "Did you ever go back?" And I said, "I went there every day. I was volunteering, I was meditating. It just naturally felt so good. And I didn't know what else to do with my life since everything else was falling apart, that meditation became my savior. And I felt like my life was changed from the inside out, but I couldn't yet really grasp it much. So I just kept going. I became like an addict, just kept going, and I would wake up in the morning, and if I didn't know what to do with myself because I didn't have a job at the time, I would just go and volunteer my time and maybe do some cleaning or just participate in a chanting or work in the garden or just do something. And that practice would make me feel that meditation again. So yeah, so think of my spiritual path, and I have learned later is in the beginning I felt very clueless, like I said, with the candles and with a lot of things that I had no idea. And when somebody said something, believe in love, I said I never heard that in my life. Anything about love felt so foreign because my background was all about wars and
Yeah.
fights and distraction. And I didn't know that it's okay to take time for yourself and spend time taking care of you and your mental health and your well-being. I mean, all this was so refreshing and new and different, and I loved it. I mean, it just felt so good. It felt like fantastic. And how can you resist that when it feels so good? You just feel drawn
You
to
can't.
it.
You're not. We're designed to follow that. Like we're designed to follow that. Like that's our natural state.
Yeah,
Is what you're like tapping into. Like you recognize that it wasn't like not a fluke. Like
right.
it still blows me away because it is tough. It was really tough for myself to learn to make that that it was something that was done, every day for sure as an act, but then it did evolve into, you know, where if something happens during the day, and I notice that I'm having a reaction to it, so I know that that's something that the inside that's coming up, right? So it's nothing to resist or bad, but give myself that space to feel that outside my body because I was highly trained on stuffing it all inside. That
Mm,
basically to survive. And like you came from like in essence, we're all sort of on the planet right now learning how to evolve ourselves. So it's like you did this, and I love the timing too. Like, because one of my big awakenings was September 11th, and that was the first time I heard the voice of my guides, and I knew that's what that was. And so like that timing, and then you're here and you came here. And I know from meditation, when you do that to your insides and you make it really, really clear, you become a channel for your purpose. So
Exactly.
how did that unfold? Because if you're there and having that peace, I know good stuff is lined up for you to experience. So what was your experience of how that unfolded for you? Like going from nothing to learning how to manifest to two divorces to how did that unfold?
So basically, the first thing, I felt really clueless. I felt really missing a lot of knowledge here. And so my initial thing was just read every book that exists about spiritual books. And I just started becoming like a bookworm. I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading and feeling like I have so much, like to learn. I was just like a sponge. I just wanted to learn. But then what happened was that my life, my life started to fall apart too, in a way. And things that I used to be really good at, I wasn't very good at anymore. And so one day I asked, it was this big book that I had, it calls From the Finite to the Infinite by Baba Muktananda. And I opened the book, and I know there is a way to do it. You can just hold the book and you ask a question, and then you open randomly on a page, right? And so I did that, and I said, what's happening in my life? And I opened the book, and it says, the death of the ego. And when that happened, what happened to me is like I got a quantum leap. All of a sudden, I got a lot of knowledge in me, just in few split of seconds.
Yeah.
That I just like accumulated this knowledge, and everything that was in the books all of a sudden seemed to be in me. Like that knowledge was in me. And I was just like I get it. It was like this big aha of getting. And people that met me that time, they said that it's like overnight I was just a completely different person. I just completely shifted. And that knowledge became part of me. And the meditation and everything, from being like only when I go to the meditation center, or only when I do volunteer work, or only when I do certain things, became more like 24/7, And it's just something that it never stops. The meditation just never stops. It's always with you. And if you pay attention to like that channel or that, it's always there. And if you forget, you just tune yourself into it, and then you're always there. It doesn't stop. And so that kind of, it was, and I kept going and I kept meditating and kept doing things. And then I had another one, of this like deeper understanding. And so it just, as you go, what I read about it later is that, and I don't even remember where I heard it, but they said like, you will go back to where you stopped in past lifetime. Like these quantum leaps will take you where you stopped in past time. All of a sudden, it's like you get all this knowledge, like you forgot. And then you get all this again. And it come back to you like downloads. It's just like a downloads of information.
I know exactly what you're talking.
Yeah, it just become part of you. And now you know. Or maybe you tap into that channel of inner knowing.
My guides always put it to me like, it's all perception, right? It's just all perception. Everything's how we perceive it. But what they gave it was that everything that's ever happened and that will ever happen in the universe is stored in every atom of our body. In every atom lies all that information.
Yeah.
So we just wake up to what's already there, but it occurs like a download. You get you get to the internet, before the internet, we were all just walking around individual people. With the internet, you plug in and you have access to anything that you want if you know how to command it. Because the internet's useless without Google, right? It's useless unless we know how to search for the thing we're looking for. And it's one thing to have the awareness, but it's another thing to navigate it, like with precision. That's like the gift that I have, is helping people with the energy. Like what you're talking about perceiving, I see it around folks all the time. It's like numbers and energy and information. I can see that if I'm working with somebody, I use that to tap into that thing that they might not be able to see. But when I do, they generally see it too. It's just like, oh, that's what that thing was, right? It's like something that used to irritate me, but it's like, oh, it was really just trying to get my attention so that I could bring my focus to it. For me, that's what meditation is. It's like the holding the light or holding a magnifying glass up directly to the sun and burning a hole in a leaf. If it's like that, it can't do that. But if it's still, which meditation gives you, then you're able to like burn a hole in a leaf. Human beings are that looking glass. So when you started to do that and found the chance, have you evolved? And like, I use all different types of meditations all the time. You know, sometimes it's just me being quiet and listening, but other times I use nature sounds or humming, or, you know, do you too, or do you have a thing that's like your tried true go to? How do you use it in your life all the time?
So yeah, what comes to me first is that when you said that, it's like I've written one of my books and it just came to me again, like a download. It was about write a book about meditation, and it was meditation, 30 days of meditation, fun techniques for beginners. That book was #1 bestseller on Amazon in 2013 when I wrote these books. And it's so in this book, it's all about trying different meditation to find out which one works best for you. For me personally, I think the way I learned meditation was you don't do anything. You just let it happen to you, kind of, you know? And maybe I just repeat a mantra if I need to. So that's the one that usually I would do. There is another meditation that I have in this book, the meditation tasting. So meditation tasting, that was about mindfulness meditation and how to take everyday's activities and implement it into meditation act. Because everything you put like 100% attention to it and you're fully present with it becomes a meditation.
Yes. Yes.
So
like when
now,
you lose your track of time, that's when you're like, that's the most powerful meditation I can think of. Yes, 100%.
So yeah, even right now, we can turn this moment into a meditation moment, you know. And one of the tools that I would do that, for example, which I'm doing it right now, is that I will include myself in the picture. So instead of me just looking from the outside, now I put myself in the background, you know, back of my eyes, and I'm just including myself. And all of a sudden I can see everything from everywhere, and everything becomes just one. And when you do that, there is a different quality to life, and you are more in the back and more centered. And it's just a little different view. But you can walk this way, you can act this way, you can talk this way. You're just from a different place. So
do you do the breathing too? Like, is the breath a part of how you have?
Yeah, so if you want, we can practice for a little bit,
Let's
like a
do
grounding.
it. Let's do it. Yes.
So this meditation is very powerful. I love to do it also with my clients when people feel like they are completely so distracted and in the mind, and they don't have a moment to pause, and they don't know where to start. And this is just perfect for that. So the main thing I would say is first, like, take off your shoes, you know, do the physical part of it, you know, make yourself feel more comfortable in your life. Like, feel your feet standing ground on the floor or the carpet or whatever that is, it's perfect, you know. And then if your hair is like in a ponytail, release that. If you wear tie, take it off. If your earring are bothering you, just take that off, you know. Just feel physically present, you know. So from the outside, we're going more into the inside. The second step is to take your tongue and put it in your upper palate and feel how it feels in the upper palate. That sensation brings you more inside to your body. The next step is to take your hands and fingers and just touch one finger into the other. Just rotate the time and just feel how it feels. Now, when you close your eyes and you have all that, as you're doing this, you will feel how the mind just drops back into the body, from the mind into the body. The sensation takes you where the attention is. So you have your tongue in the upper palate and your fingers, and you can feel your feet. Then that's the part where we want to start breathing in and out. Just take a nice few deep breaths in and let them out. And then you can just start feeling your feet where it touches the ground, and you can start scanning your body and just feel how it feels to be in your body. You know, you just notice if there is any tension, any place that needs your attention, and you just breathe into that. You just make more room in that area. And you go up into your knees and your hip and your torso and your heart region, and you just feel how it feels to be in your heart. And you go up into your throat and you notice if there is any words that stuck there. Sometimes we have anger or words, and you just notice and you breathe into that. You go into your third eye, the place between the eyebrows, and you just rest there for a second and you breathe, and you maybe stretch or release your shoulders or neck or anything that feel tight, and you will feel that the body feel more relaxed and tuned, and then you can just sit like that as long as you need.
It's amazing how, so that was new for me about the tactile thing as a way in. That really worked. I've done that tongue thing before as part of a meditation before, but this was really super powerful. So thank you so much for that, because my body feels warm and tingly right now. Reminds me of when I did an ice bath thing about a year ago. And I was like the sonomic breath work beforehand. And that made me so hot on the inside. I was inside the cold, watching my mind fight with itself about what's going on here. I have that same sensation in my body of I've never had that before. So I was also present to how comfortable I am in my body. Because normally I work out all the time and I try to stay fit, so I'm always a little bit sore, but I appreciated that in there. That was, I felt as well. So thank you.
Good. I think this is the grounding technique that is like fastest way to go from and it is basically first we started externally and then we went into the internal. And it works every time. It's really a great technique to do it.
So how are you now with your life? Like, how is the rest of everything worked out? Like, I'm assuming you work with clients too? I heard you say that.
I do a relationship. I'm coaching in relationships, intimacy, stress reduction, of course. That's my specialty. I also study something that called the journey, which the journey is a technique, I don't know if you heard about it, by Brandon Bayes. No? It's a way to tap into the subconscious mind and bring some old memories that are stored in the cells in the body and heal them naturally. And so in my work, I work with people and basically we just close our eyes and I just guide you into a little meditation. And when you do that, in a specific area or based on specific thing that a person wants to work on, we get into the core of an old memory that over there, it's inside the body where the trauma is located. And we can release it, work on it, heal it. And this has helped people with physical traumas, emotional, mental. It helps with everything really. So it's a really powerful tool that I love to work with when people have something that they tried and nothing works, and this one just get you there. And it's always kind of like what you said earlier, that you're surprised about the messages that you get, and that people get their own messages with that, and sometimes they get to see how other person feel during whatever happened, and it's always fascinating. It's always a fascinating experience. So that's another technique I love to do with my clients. Yes.
I love that we started with the story of the 2 divorces and we're wrapping up with I do relationship coaching. So I assume that all those experiences the universe had on your plate gave you the fuel to turn that into a gift, right?
Absolutely. We are not a victim. It takes 2 to tango. And
Sure
actually,
does.
I want to mention that I do have, I wrote a relationship workbook. It calls Peace in Love. And I have it on my website where people can get it for free. And maybe we can put a link to that where they can go. My website is relationshipcoachla.com. And then, I can give you the link. That would be really great because in that there is tools that teaches you how you can heal your relationship where it just takes you. So doesn't have to even have your partner working on the relationship with you.
No. The only way really is yourself. So
Yes.
Once that relationship's repaired and you know yourself as whole and complete, then that's what you attract versus deficits.
Exactly.
So that I I love that. I took me years to figure that out. Years to figure that out. But I did figure that out. So I love relationships now. Not like well, everything's a relationship. I love learning how to relate to everything that I'm around so that I can hear it. I'm not coming from a space from ego or anything like that. So I'm genuinely interested because I love connecting and I love unity and like evolving. We have to have these types of conversations where we get to share our experience, share the stuff that people would say is not really too great to experience, or some people think 2 divorces at 30 is the death sentence or my life's over. It's like, no, it's like whatever happened is your stuff to turn into your gift. It's not by accident. So if we start talking about it and seeing that common thread, then that opens the door to let go of the shame or guilt or whatever it is that we have about whatever our situations were that made us who we are today. But it is something. Not everybody can make that turn. And I know that there's 7.5 billion of us on the planet. We're all evolving. And I know we generate, not everybody can go to a Tony Robbins or whoever the guru of the day is. But people like us, we make a difference because we're sharing authentically what happened. I totally relate to everything that you were saying. And even though I didn't know this till you just said that, but I just knew that from your energy that you had crushed it. So I could feel your authenticity kind of coming through. So all the bells and the whistles. But it's just such a joy to talk to you. I hope to have you back on someday. We do something a little bit, maybe do something for my channel or something where we could show more in depth about that process, because I think it's just so important. But I'm curious, what is your takeaway from today?
It was wonderful. It just seems like we're on the same wavelength you're speaking. So it makes me so happy that there are people like you that are doing that and making a podcast for people that would love to hear. I know that so many times in my life, I was so thirsty to hear the words that when you hear that, it just makes sense. And there is a deeper knowing and understanding. And you're like, you know what, I'm not alone in this. Yeah. And yes, so it gives me hope.
A little whiff of hope, everything's a little bit better. It's all about climbing out of that scale. So I appreciate you. And if you guys, I hope you got tons of value listening for our conversation today. And that just know whatever's going on or how stressed out you feel at the end of the day or whatever thing has manifested, whatever it is, your best course of action is to get really still first and connect with that part of inside that's causing that manifestation outside. And you can do that by learning to master the art of being present and having meditation be a part of your life all day long, and join other people, because as soon as you do, you start attracting other people around you. And for me, it's about that community. Thank you for being part of my community today. And you guys have an amazing day, and we will all see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Thank you.